Hey guys, it's Generalkidd here. How's everyone doing today? So, for today's video, well, if you remember, a few days ago I showed you guys a video about using the Pillar of Autumn's cannons and how powerful they were, and the fact that if the Pillar of Autumn actually used them against the Covenant cruiser at the end, then Noble 6 could have been saved. But for today, we won't be focusing on the Pillar of Autumn's cannons. We'll be instead jumping to the other side and taking a look at the Covenant Corvette's cannons instead. So the cannons I'm referring to are the ones on the Covenant Corvette that you board on a mission Long Night of Solace. They're also the exact same cannons that destroy the Savannah. And we're going to be taking a look at what it's like to actually use and fire these cannons, or I guess to drive them, so to speak. And we'll also see how powerful the shots actually are. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, obviously it took a little bit of minor modding to make them usable. They're actually like actual vehicles in the game. So I didn't have to like do anything crazy to make them usable. I just had to enable them for the player to be able to use them. And as you can see, the game considers them as like a Warthog turret, but that only happens when I actually enable them to be used. The user is not supposed to actually be able to see it, but that's what it says. Now, this is what's like by default inside the cannon, and as you can see, the default camera is not that great, so I did change the camera up a little bit to make it a little bit easier to see where we're shooting. But surprisingly, this gun actually does have its own HUD and everything, even though it's not supposed to be usable by the players. But it's actually, like I said, it actually turned out to be a pretty quote-unquote player-usable weapon or cannon, I guess. But as you can see, this is what it's like to fire one, and this is like the fastest I can actually fire it. It has a very low fire rate, so to speak. I believe it was exactly 2 seconds between each shot. But this is what it's like to fire it. And of course, the Savannah, it's not actually like taking damage from the shots. It's scripted to just explode. So like even if I like disabled all these cannons and like got rid of the AIs that's firing them, the Savannah would just explode by itself for no reason. So if you think that you could save the Savannah by stopping cannons from firing, no, unfortunately you can't. The Savannah will explode no matter what, unless you do something else to save it. But yeah, these cannons are not directly responsible as far as are technically responsible for the destruction of the Savannah. But anyways, I'm sure you want to see what the cannons are like if you use them like in normal gameplay against actual enemies, not just against a sitting target that doesn't actually take any damage. Well, I modded it at the beginning of this mission so that instead of the elite drop pods coming down, it's actually the turrets that drop down, and they're actually pretty huge when compared to like the normal stuff inside the map when we're not in space, when we're on land. And when the shots explode nearby, they actually have a huge explosion as well, as you can see. However, don't let its size fool you. It may be huge, but in this case, the size of the explosion doesn't matter. Really, the explosion does no damage at all. It's like even though like it makes a huge explosion, all the enemies are totally unaffected by it. It has a very small blast radius. And at first, I thought maybe it's because the shots do no damage at all. But they do actually do damage. It has to do with direct hit. As you can see, that leak just ran in front of me, and it did get killed there. But it has to be like it's a very small like shot, and it had to hit it like spot on. But let's take a look at the specs of the projectiles it fires. Each shot it does has a max range of 400 world units, a velocity of 120 world units a second, and it does a total damage of 250 points per shot. But of course it has a blast radius of 0, so that's why the huge explosion doesn't affect anyone. And as I mentioned earlier, it takes 2 seconds between shots. So yeah, it's not a very useful anti-personnel weapon, so to speak. Which, it wasn't really meant for that anyways. But since we're trying to use it against the ground forces, you can see it's pretty useless unless you get a very accurate direct hit, which it's very hard to aim it when you're on the ground like this. So it doesn't really matter. The cannons on the Pillar of Autumn are much more useful against ground units if you set it up right. But yeah, so that is what it's like to use the Corvette cannons, the Covenant Corvette cannons. As you can see, it is, each shot is very powerful, just like the Pillar of Autumn's cannon's shots, but it's not very, useful unless it's against like large vehicles where it's hard to miss. But anyways, hopefully you guys have found this to be interesting, and if you did enjoy this, make sure to leave a like. I'll leave it the thoughts in the comments, let me know if there's anything else you want me to check out. But other than that, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye guys!